Summer evenings in the garden should be one of the genuine pleasures of having an outdoor space. The light at that hour, the warmth that lingers after the sun has dropped, the particular quietness that settles over a garden when the day's activity winds down. All of it should add up to something restorative and enjoyable. And it would, except for the one persistent problem that turns garden evenings from a pleasure into an endurance test for so many people: mosquitoes. The conventional responses to mosquitoes involve either spraying yourself with chemicals that work but that you'd rather not be absorbing through your skin every evening, or burning citronella candles that provide a narrow zone of partial deterrence at best, or simply retreating inside when the biting begins. None of these solutions feel satisfactory. None of them address the underlying problem, and none of them contribute anything to the garden itself beyond a temporary chemical presence that dissipates quickly and needs constant reapplication. There is a better approach, one that works with the garden rather than against it, that builds a permanent deterrent into the planting itself, and that produces something genuinely beautiful in the process. Because the plants that mosquitoes find most repellent are, almost without exception, plants that gardeners find most attractive. The aromatic compounds that mosquitoes detect and avoid, the volatile oils that make certain plants smell wonderful to human noses, are precisely the compounds that interfere with mosquitoes' ability to locate their hosts. The garden that smells best to you is, by that very quality, the garden that mosquitoes most want to avoid. The 7 perennials on today's list work on this principle. They produce aromatic volatile oils in their foliage and flowers that research has shown to have genuine mosquito deterrent properties. They do this continuously, passively, simply by existing in the garden and releasing those compounds into the air around them. No burning, no spraying, no effort required beyond the planting itself. And every one of them is a genuine ornamental perennial that earns its place in the garden on aesthetic grounds completely independently of its mosquito-deterring qualities. I want to be clear about something before we go further. These plants are not a magic force field. A single lavender plant in a large garden will not eliminate mosquitoes from the entire space. What these plants do, planted thoughtfully and in sufficient quantity around the areas where you actually sit and spend time, is create an aromatic environment that mosquitoes find inhospitable, a zone of deterrence that significantly reduces the number willing to enter and feed. Combined with other sensible practices like eliminating standing water, the effect is meaningful and real. These are not folk remedies. The science behind the aromatic compounds in these plants and their effect on mosquito behavior is genuine and documented. Now let me take you through all 7. Number 1 is lavender. Lavender's position at the top of this list is earned on 2 completely separate grounds simultaneously. Its mosquito deterrent properties are among the most well-documented of any aromatic garden plant, and its ornamental qualities are so comprehensively established that it would belong in any serious garden discussion entirely on its own merits. The fact that it also happens to be one of the most effective natural mosquito deterrents available makes it the most complete plant on today's entire list. The active compounds are linalool and linalool acetate, the primary aromatic constituents of lavender's essential oil. These compounds, released continuously from the plant's foliage and flowers into the surrounding air, interfere with mosquitoes' ability to detect the carbon dioxide and lactic acid signals that they use to locate warm-blooded hosts. A mosquito in a lavender-rich environment is essentially navigating with degraded sensory equipment. It can detect that hosts are present somewhere nearby, but cannot locate them with the precision that a successful feeding requires. The result is that mosquitoes avoid lavender-rich zones, not because the smell is unpleasant to them in any simple sense, but because those zones make feeding difficult and unreliable. For the garden, this means that lavender planted strategically around seating areas, along pathways leading to outdoor dining spaces, and in borders immediately adjacent to where people congregate, creates a zone of deterrence that is both functional and genuinely beautiful. The closer the planting to where people sit, the more effective the deterrence. Not because proximity dramatically increases the aromatic concentration in the air, but because brushing past lavender, sitting near it, catching it with a trailing hand, releases additional volatile oils that significantly boost the local aromatic environment. Hidcote and Munstead are the two varieties most consistently recommended for mosquito deterrents because they produce the most concentrated essential oil content of any compact lavender varieties available. Both are reliably perennial in zones 5 through 9. Both reach around 18 inches in height and spread, and both produce those dense, fragrant purple spikes from early summer through late summer with a consistency that makes them among the most reliable ornamental perennials in the sunny border. Plant lavender in full sun in well-drained soil, the classic lean, gritty conditions that produce the most oil-rich and most aromatically intense foliage. Lavender in rich, moist soil produces more leafy growth, but significantly less essential oil, which means less fragrance, less ornamental quality, and less mosquito deterrent simultaneously. The conditions that make lavender most beautiful are the same conditions that make it most effective as a deterrent. Lean soil, full sun, excellent drainage, and a light trim after each flowering flush to keep the plant producing fresh, aromatic growth through the season. Around a patio seating area, plant lavender in groups of 3 or 5 along the borders immediately surrounding the sitting space, with individual plants close enough that movement between them brushes the foliage and releases additional oils. In a long border, repeat lavender at regular intervals to create a continuous aromatic presence rather than isolated points of deterrence. The visual rhythm this repetition creates is one of the hallmarks of well-designed planting, and the functional benefit of that repetition, a sustained aromatic environment rather than brief aromatic interruptions, makes the design decision doubly justified. Number 2 is catmint. Catmint contains nepentolactone, a compound that research published in peer-reviewed journals has shown to be significantly more effective at repelling mosquitoes than DEET, the active ingredient in most commercial mosquito repellents, at equivalent concentrations. That is not a claim from folk medicine or anecdotal gardening wisdom. That is documented, replicated scientific research. And the plant that produces it happens to be one of the most beautiful, most reliable, most easy-to-grow perennials available for the sunny garden. Nepentolactone is released from catmint's foliage when the plant is brushed or disturbed, which is why planting it along pathways and at the edges of seating areas where incidental contact is frequent maximizes its deterrent effect. The compound is present in the foliage continuously, even without physical disturbance, releasing slowly into the surrounding air from the surface of the leaves. But physical contact dramatically increases the rate of release and the local concentration of the deterrent. The ornamental qualities of catmint are thoroughly documented on this channel and need only brief reinforcement here. Walker's Low forms billowing mounds of gray-green aromatic foliage covered in lavender-blue flower spikes from late spring through autumn with managed cutbacks, one of the longest blooming seasons of any perennial in the border. Six Hills Giant reaches 2 to 3 feet in height and spread, creating a more substantial specimen for larger borders or more prominent placement near outdoor seating. Both varieties spread steadily to form generous clumps that increase the total aromatic surface area of the planting, and therefore the deterrent zone, with every passing season. Plant catmint at the edges of paths leading to outdoor seating areas so that anyone walking through the garden brushes the foliage and triggers that release of nepentolactone. Plant it at the corners and edges of patios, where it can spill slightly forward onto the hard surface, and where the warmth retained by paving stones through the day increases the rate of volatile oil evaporation in the evening hours when mosquitoes are most active. The combination of continuous background release and incidental contact release creates the most comprehensive deterrent zone that any single plant on this list can produce. Number 3 is lemon balm. Lemon balm is the mosquito deterrent perennial that most people have never considered for their garden because it doesn't look like the kind of plant that does something useful. It's not dramatically beautiful in the way lavender is. It doesn't produce showy flowers or striking architectural form. What it produces is an extraordinary concentration of citronella-related compounds in its leaves, specifically citronellol, geraniol, and nerol, that are the same active ingredients as the commercial citronella products people buy specifically for mosquito deterrents. The difference between growing lemon balm and burning a citronella candle is that the candle produces a localized, temporary, and rapidly dissipating deterrent effect that requires constant replacement. Lemon balm produces a continuous, living, self-renewing source of those same compounds that grows stronger and more productive every season it establishes in the garden. The aromatic release from established lemon balm foliage on a warm summer evening, when the heat of the day causes volatile oil evaporation to increase significantly, creates a sustained aromatic environment that surrounds outdoor seating with the same compounds people pay considerable money to replicate from a jar or a candle. The foliage smells exactly as the name suggests: clean, bright, intensely lemony, with a freshness that is genuinely pleasant in the garden environment and that carries on the air around established plantings on warm evenings with a subtlety and a naturalness that chemical deterrents never replicate. Brushing a hand across lemon balm foliage releases a concentrated burst of that fragrance that is immediately and noticeably deterrent to any mosquitoes in the immediate vicinity. In the garden, lemon balm grows vigorously and spreads readily, a quality that works in the gardener's favor from a deterrence perspective, because more plant means more aromatic surface area means a larger and more effective deterrent zone. The spreading habit needs management in smaller gardens to prevent it overwhelming neighboring plants. But that management produces regular harvests of those aromatic leaves that can be brought inside, brewed as a genuinely pleasant herbal tea, used to infuse summer drinks, or rubbed directly onto exposed skin as a natural topical deterrent that is both effective and pleasantly fragrant. The ornamental contribution is quiet but real. The fresh green foliage is attractive throughout the growing season. The small white flowers that appear in summer are modest but provide for pollinators. The plant forms a neat, substantial, ground-covering mound that earns its place in the border on foliage grounds even before its functional properties are considered. Number 4 is rosemary. Rosemary belongs on this list for the same fundamental reason that lavender and catmint do. The aromatic compounds in its foliage are genuinely and documentably repellent to mosquitoes. But it brings an additional quality to the deterrent garden that the other plants here don't provide in the same way. Rosemary is an herb, a culinary herb of the first importance, grown in kitchen gardens for millennia, irreplaceable in cooking in a way that few other plants approach. And the fact that it is simultaneously one of the most effective natural mosquito deterrents available means that a rosemary plant near the outdoor dining area is doing two completely different jobs simultaneously: deterring mosquitoes from the people eating and providing the herb for the food being eaten. The active compounds are camphor, 1,8-cineol, and alpha-pinene, aromatic terpenoids that are released continuously from rosemary's needle-like foliage and that mosquitoes find strongly repellent. The release rate increases with temperature and with physical disturbance, which means that warm summer evenings, precisely the conditions when mosquito activity peaks, are also the conditions when rosemary's deterrent properties are most actively expressed. Prostratus is the trailing variety that works beautifully cascading over the edges of raised beds or retaining walls near outdoor seating, creating both a visual feature and a low-level aromatic deterrent zone at precisely the height where mosquitoes tend to be most active. Miss Jessup's upright provides vertical structure and can be clipped into a formal hedge along the perimeter of a patio or seating area, creating a defined aromatic boundary that is both functional and genuinely ornamental. Tuscan blue produces the most abundant flowering of any upright rosemary variety, and the flowers themselves, small, blue-purple, covering the stems in late spring, are both ornamentally beautiful and edible, adding a further dimension to this comprehensively useful plant. Number 5 is agastache. Agastache, commonly called hyssop or hummingbird mint, is perhaps the most underused plant on this entire list, and that is a genuine shame, because what it brings to the deterrent garden is a combination of ornamental quality and functional effectiveness that very few perennials can match across both categories simultaneously. If lavender is the most famous plant on this list, and catmint is the most scientifically impressive, agastache is the one that most consistently surprises people when they discover what it's actually capable of. The active compounds are pulegone and methylchavicol, aromatic constituents released continuously from the plant's strongly anise-scented foliage into the surrounding air. These compounds disrupt mosquitoes' host detection chemistry in much the same way lavender's linalool does, degrading their ability to navigate toward carbon dioxide and lactic acid sources with the precision that a successful feeding requires. The foliage is fragrant simply by existing in the garden. Brushing against it, catching it with a trailing hand, walking past it on a warm evening. Each of these releases an intensified burst of that distinctive anise-licorice scent that is both immediately pleasant to human senses and immediately deterrent to any mosquitoes attempting to orient themselves in the surrounding space. Ornamentally, agastache produces tall, densely packed flower spikes in shades of orange, coral, soft purple, and rich blue from midsummer through to the first frosts. One of the longest continuous flowering windows of any perennial available for the sunny border. Blue Fortune and Black Adder are the two varieties most reliably perennial in zones 5 through 9, both producing abundant lavender blue flower spikes from July through September that attract pollinators in extraordinary numbers. The visual irony of a plant that draws every beneficial insect in the garden while simultaneously deterring the one flying insect nobody wants present at an outdoor dinner is not lost on anyone who grows it. Plant agastache in bold groups of 3 or 5 behind the immediate border surrounding your seating area, where its height, typically 2 to 3 feet, creates a fragrant, aromatic backdrop through the back half of summer, and where its flower spikes provide the vertical structure and late-season color that most borders desperately need when the early summer flush begins to fade. Number 6 is scented geranium. Scented geraniums are not the familiar bedding geraniums of window boxes and municipal planting schemes, and it is worth being clear about that distinction from the outset, because conflating the two causes people to dismiss this plant before they have properly understood what it is. Scented geraniums are a distinct group of pelargonium species and cultivars, bred and selected entirely for the aromatic intensity of their foliage, rather than the visual showiness of their flowers. Among them, the citronella-scented varieties, Pelargonium citrosum being the most widely available, contain concentrations of geraniol and citronellol in their leaves that rival the active ingredient concentrations found in commercial mosquito deterrent products. The mechanism is identical to lemon balms, the same citronella-related compounds, the same interference with mosquitoes' host detection sensory systems, the same continuous passive release from foliage that intensifies meaningfully with heat and with physical contact. But where lemon balm offers relatively simple, fresh green foliage, scented geraniums bring genuine textural drama to the garden. Deeply lobed, elaborately divided, velvety leaves in silver green that catch evening light beautifully, and that have the further quality of actively inviting the kind of incidental touching and handling that maximizes aromatic release into the immediate environment. Because scented geraniums are not fully hardy in most temperate climates, they are best grown in containers positioned immediately adjacent to outdoor seating areas. This apparent limitation is actually an advantage. A container placed directly beside a garden chair brings the plant within easy reach for brushing and contact. The contained growing medium warms rapidly in evening sun, increasing the rate of volatile oil evaporation from the foliage precisely during those early evening hours when mosquito activity peaks and deterrence is most needed. Move them inside before the first frost, overwinter them on a bright windowsill, and return them to position the following spring. Number 7 is pennyroyal. Pennyroyal is the most potent natural mosquito deterrent on this entire list, and it works differently from every other plant here in a way that makes it uniquely valuable in the designed deterrent garden. As a member of the mint family, it contains pelargone in concentrations that research consistently identifies as highly effective against mosquitoes. But unlike the taller, more border-appropriate plants on this list, pennyroyal is a low, spreading, mat-forming ground cover that reaches only a few inches in height and spreads steadily outward across the soil or between paving stones with a determination that is entirely characteristic of the mint family it belongs to. That spreading, mat-forming habit is precisely what makes pennyroyal so valuable in specific positions around outdoor seating. Planted between the paving stones of a path leading to a garden dining area, pennyroyal releases its concentrated deterrent compounds with every footstep, turning the simple act of walking to your outdoor table into a functional act of mosquito deterrence. Planted as a ground cover around the base of garden furniture, it creates a low-level aromatic zone at precisely the height where mosquitoes tend to concentrate and feed. It requires no effort, no maintenance beyond occasional trimming to keep it from overwhelming neighboring plants, and it strengthens and expands its deterrent coverage with every season it establishes further in the garden. One important note: pennyroyal should not be used on skin as a topical application and should be kept away from pets, as its essential oil concentration is high enough to cause irritation. As a garden plant, releasing compounds passively into the surrounding air, it is safe, effective, and genuinely valuable. As something to be handled directly and applied to skin, it should be left to the other plants on this list. Plant these 7 perennials thoughtfully, in sufficient quantity and in the right positions around the spaces where you actually sit and spend your summer evenings, and you will have built something that works continuously, passively, and beautifully. A garden that deters mosquitoes not despite being well planted, but precisely because it is. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.